Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be sharing with you some of my favorite Canon lenses that I have accumulated over the course of a decade. I'm going to be sharing this with you not from a very technical perspective, but more from a, hey, I just got a DSLR and if I would have known what I know now, which lens should I get? And so I'm going to share with you some of my favorite ones. It kind of explains to you all the different details that you need to know, but not at a technical level, more of like, hey, use cases and also things you probably want to do with these lenses so that you can make an educated decision, because these lenses are pretty expensive, and I want to share with you also that it took a decade to get to the lenses that I have today. So stay tuned, I'm going to share all about that. Okay, a little bit of backstory. So my husband actually got me a camera in 2009 as a Christmas present, and what I didn't realize at the time was that I fall in love with just photography in general. And so the Canon 50D was my first camera, and I got a bunch of kit lenses with it. Long story short, in 3 months, I realized that those kit lenses were terrible for me, at least for what I wanted to do. I mean, for the novice who is using a camera, the kit lenses might be an easy way to go. But I would recommend for a novice to actually get the Canon 50mm lens. This is called the Nifty 50, and what's really amazing is it has a lower f-stop. It's a 1.8, and what that will allow you to do is actually get that blurry background that I was trying to achieve as a novice back in 2009. And so I still have this, and this is the 5D Mark III. So 50D camera, I actually upgraded the 5D Mark III when I started shooting weddings. Yes, I did weddings. I did family photography in weddings, and that's how I actually was able to afford and invest in these lenses, because I was basically being hired for weddings, and I was on the lower end of the spectrum of wedding photographers, but it made enough so that I could get a bunch of these L lenses in my bag. For a beginner photographer or content creator, what I would recommend is when you get your camera, make sure that you understand whether or not you have a full frame or a crop frame camera. Now, I would recommend getting a full frame. It will give you versatility in what you're able to do. If you are planning on shooting a lot of, like, I don't know, birds or whatever that are far away, a crop sensor camera might be really good for you. But for a content creator, I would recommend getting a full frame camera. This is the Nifty 50, and the Nifty 50 is actually a great lens to start with because it is a prime lens. The two different lenses that you can get are prime and zoom. The zoom lens means that you're able to change like the focal length so that you don't have to like zoom in with your feet. You basically have a lens that basically zooms in and out for you. The trade-off that you're making with a zoom lens versus a prime lens is that with a zoom lens, normally the focal lengths that you get will not have the aperture at the lower settings. So that is one trade-off you have to consider with zoom versus a prime lens. A lot of people say that with a prime lens, you should get a prime lens because you can just zoom with your feet, right? You can just walk up and get closer instead of having to kind of trade off the aperture for a zoom lens. But if you are a wedding photographer and your subjects are moving back and forth really quickly, or you're not having to, or you have to stand in one place, a zoom lens might be better for you. Again, you're sacrificing the ability to have a lower aperture in like dark settings where you might need it, or even when you're doing portraiture. So that's what I would recommend. So if you are moving a lot with your feet, or you're a travel vlogger, or you're a travel blogger creating content, a zoom lens might be important if you don't have a lot of space like to move. Okay, so that is one tip that I would give to you. Choose whether or not you want a zoom lens or a prime lens. In my bag, I actually have all prime lenses. The reason why is because often I am creating content in dark spaces, or I just need a lot of light that's coming into my camera. And so with prime lenses, I'm able to kind of lower the f-stop so that I can get more light into my camera. Alright, so let's talk about the lenses and the order of which I got them, just so that you understand what the mistakes I made along the way, so that you can learn from me. So after my kit lenses, which I would not recommend, but you might see this kit lens right here that came with my Canon M50, which is a mirrorless lens, which is a completely different lens line, but this is the one that I have decided to actually replace using an adapter, which I'll talk about later. Before I get into all my expensive lenses, I wanted to share with you, if you are a new like DSLR user, get the Nifty 50. The reason why is because it's going to allow you to get that lower aperture, and then also be able to teach you how to zoom with your feet and get close or further away, and just understand your camera a lot more using the Canon Nifty 50. And I would also recommend shooting in manual if you can. So that's my pro tip for any novice Canon DSLR user. Now let's talk about all the lenses that I got in order of which I got them. So the first one is actually on this camera that I'm shooting right now, and it is the 24L lens, and it has a 1.4 aperture, and it's really amazing when I need a wide shot. So I'm currently shooting with the 24L lens, which was my first lens I ever got, and it was really expensive, and I actually didn't know what I was buying, but the 24L allowed me to get the wide shots, and at the time I was a wedding photographer, so I had to shoot in cathedrals where like I just needed that wide shot with the bride and groom like right in front, and that's why I got that lens, and actually has served me really well. Now, truth be told, if I could do it all over again as my first lens, I would actually get the 35L, but that's neither here nor there. The 24L is actually working really well for me as a content creator because sometimes I need those wider shots. So right now, my Canon 24L lens is actually on my Canon M50 using an adapter ring. This adapter ring was about $60. This adapter ring allows me to use my Canon EF lenses with a mirrorless lens. And if you didn't know, if you have a mirrorless lens, it's a completely different lens line that you would be buying unless you get an adapter, which you can then adapt the EF lenses to your mirrorless camera. So you can see that in the background is kind of blurry, and that's typically what people strive to get if they are doing some cinematography or just wanting to make the video look nice. So that's my pro tip to you, is getting this adapter ring, which is awesome. I actually just got it last week, and if you can see, I think 2 videos before this one, you can see like the quality difference between my other videos, which use the kit lens versus the one that uses like an adapter with my L lens. So in order of the lenses that I have are the 24, which I'm shooting with, and then the 35L, and then the Nifty 50, which I absolutely love. I used to actually have the 50L, but for some reason the mechanics on it wasn't working, so I had to like get rid of it. But Nifty 50, it's only $200 versus like $1,500. And then I have the 100 macro, non-L, and then I also have the 135L, which is amazing for portraiture. Incredible. I generally use that for a lot of my family photo shoots, and because it just gives that buttery bokeh in the background, and I just can't explain it, so I'll show you guys a photo of some of my kids that I shot with it. The 35L is a standard lens that generally is used, like when you think of like old film photography, like the 35mm, that's where I think that comes from. Don't quote me on that, but this is the standard like focal length for cameras, and so it's definitely important to have this in your back pocket. I like it. I don't use it as often as my 24 or my 50. The 24 is what I use the most, to be honest, because I have a crop video camera there. But if I'm using my DSLR, which I guess this video is for, this is the one that I would recommend, because the 24L is just too wide. If I'm trying to get a wide shot, I would use a 24, but if I'm getting like just a standard shot, like whether it's portraiture or whatever, the 35L is actually a really great lens. Okay, so let's talk about the 100 macro. My 100 macro was also the second or third lens that I actually got. And the reason why I got it was because for wedding portraiture, I had to get pictures of like people's rings and like close-up shots of like the accessories and all that stuff, and this was great for it. There is a 100L lens that is really great, and it's a little bit heavier as well because, you know, obviously it's more expensive, but this lens is awesome. I mean, if you want to shoot bugs, you could do that, but I also found that it's really great for portraiture as well. Not as good as the 135L lens, but it's really just as good. So if you're trying to get a longer focal length, I would recommend getting this one, because you kind of get 2-in-1. You get the macro lens to get close-up stuff, and then you get really beautiful portraiture shots with this lens. I would recommend this one as your first lens if you don't want to spend a lot of money, but you also want to get like a versatile lens. This is a great one to have. This 135 is incredible. I would never use this actually on my M50 just because I don't shoot video with close-up lenses, but this is an incredible lens when I'm trying to get really beautiful shots that will actually be hung up on the wall. The photos that come out with this are so buttery and creamy. If you're new and you're trying to learn how to shoot in manual, the pro tip that I have is that whatever the focal length on your camera is, double it for setting your shutter speed. The reason why is that it will cause less shake, because if you take photos and you see it kind of blurry, or you see like the double clone or triple clone on it, is because your shutter speed wasn't high enough. Okay, so what I would recommend is that if you're trying to shoot with these two lenses, get really good at remembering to change your shutter speed to double the focal length. What you might find is that the viewfinder is so small that you might not catch that that photo is blurry, and then you get to your computer to edit the photo, and then you'll be really, really disappointed. So if you get these lenses, just remember my pro tip: always double the shutter speed based on the focal length of these lenses. Those are the ones that I have in my bag. I've actually had the 15L fisheye lens, and what I realized was that it was way too wide for me, and it kind of distorted the ends a little bit, and so I really didn't like that. I've also had the 50L, which had mechanical problems, maybe because I bought it used, but I didn't really like that lens either. I just felt like it wasn't reliable to me, but again, that might be because it was used, but I've heard great things about that one. And I've heard great things about the Sigma 50 lens as well. That's for the Canon. So just a pro tip there. And I'm pretty sure that that one has a manual focus and not an autofocus. So don't quote me on that. Go look it up. But I've heard great things about the Sigma lens from my wedding photographer friends. And if you really want to do a zoom lens, I would recommend the 24 to 70L lens. It has an aperture of about 2.8, and I know it's very, very versatile. You won't get the bokeh that you would get with the 1.8 or 1.4 lenses or 1.2 lenses that are out there. So if you're trying to shoot in dark spaces, I would highly recommend against getting a zoom lens unless you're okay with a little noise, because you're pushing up the ISO on your setting. And if you are shooting in dark spaces, which I shot in a lot of dark places, churches and all that stuff, like, you're going to need that aperture. So I would recommend just thinking about, or at least renting these lenses so that you can understand what they're capable of before actually investing in these lenses, because they are pretty expensive. I'm pretty sure I've got like, I don't know, $3,000 worth in these lenses right now sitting on this desk. So there you have it. That is my review of all these different lenses. Again, I am not a family photographer or wedding photographer anymore, so I don't know current state what everyone's using, but these are the lenses that I love, and they have transitioned really well for me being a content creator on YouTube and as a blogger. I still use these lenses quite a bit as a content creator. I don't use the 135L very much, and I don't use the 100 macro very much for content creation, but I do use them a lot in portraiture of my kids. And so if they're at a soccer game, or if they are, you know, out and about and I'm taking photos, these are two lenses that do come with me. Generally it's one or the other, but not both. But I'm afraid to use some of these because I always forget to increase the shutter speed to double the length, and so sometimes I get disappointed, and sometimes this just doesn't come out because I'm just too afraid that I'll be disappointed at the computer. If you're new to DSLR cameras and you're just starting out, especially as a content creator, get this Nifty 50. It's under $200. It's probably around $150. 5 years ago, it was like $110, $120. So this lens is really, really amazing. It'll teach you how to zoom on your feet. It'll teach you how to use bokeh. It goes really low on the aperture, and it is going to do what you need it to do as a content creator. But as a content creator, you just use your iPhone too. So iPhone has a bunch of different capabilities, but if you're trying to get to the DSLR route, the Nifty 50 is a great first lens. And if you have a full frame camera, my second lens I would recommend is the 35L. The 35L has been amazing to me. And then after that, I would recommend getting the 24L because it'll give you that wider shot, especially as a content creator when you need to, you know, get a wider shot of a space or a wider shot of the area that you're trying to create photos in. But if you are a food blogger or a blogger who does really close-up things of their product, I would recommend getting this 100 macro lens. It's really, really incredible, and it's also very versatile so that if you want to pull back, you can. But obviously, if you're pulling back, you're going to be pulling back a long ways. That is my review of the lenses that I have in my bag. If you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to leave a comment below and comment on what lens is your favorite lens that you have in your bag. I'd love to hear it. If you guys like videos like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button, click on the bell to get notifications the next time I create new videos, and go ahead and check out some of my other videos that I have as well on tools, tech, and gear. I plan on doing a lot more of these. If you guys have a specific piece of gear that you want me to review or talk about, or that you've seen on this channel, please leave a comment, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye guys!